So, morning everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name is Christian from University of Essex. I'm your host for this morning. I would like to introduce to you our newest webinar in a series of Breaking Business Barriers with Virtual Reality, part of our Space to Grow program. We are recording this session as with all of our sessions, and we'll redistribute the recording in the following days. It shouldn't take us long. Throughout the duration of this webinar, please do feel free to ask any questions that you have, either on the topic of the presentation or the general sort of VR field. We'll collate all of your questions and we'll answer those towards the end of the session. If you do want to ask a question, use either the chat function or the Q&A function. And that's pretty much it for housekeeping. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker for today. That's Bertie Mills, the co-founder and chief operating officer of a Virtual Umbrella, presenting to you on how immersive technologies, including virtual reality, can boost your business. So I believe we've got the slides up. Do take it away.
Hello, good morning, everyone. If you can't hear me or you can't see the presentation, please hammer your messages into that chat box. Let me know ASAP so that I can fix it. If not, I'm going to continue and hope that we're all good. So welcome everybody to Breaking Business Barriers. What is augmented reality and what can AR do for your business? So as a preface to the topic, when we talk about augmented reality, I'm also going to be talking about virtual reality, mixed reality, and the whole spectrum of immersive technologies. Whilst I'm focusing on augmented reality today, I think it's really important that people kind of have a bit more of a context and a bit more of a contextual understanding of the entire space, because augmented reality might not be the right tool for your business necessarily, but some of the other ones might be. And I want to make sure I give you the best foundation possible for starting with. So, what is immersive technology? Immersive technology is commonly known as XR. XR itself is a bit of a contested term. XR, for a lot of people, it means extended reality, meaning the extended scale and scope of reality technology. For some people, X stands for cross reality because you're crossing all these different boundaries. And then for other people, the X is like the mathematical X. So, you know, you could replace the X with an A or a V or an M. But yeah, XR is just a term that people use. And if you just say XR to people who work in this technology, they'll kind of know what you mean. So a bit more of an understanding here. So VR or virtual reality is where you are working with virtual objects inside of a virtual environment. So you can see the little image underneath. The robot is inside of a virtual world. So you put on a VR headset, you're in an entirely different space and you're interacting with digital objects. AR is where you're taking digital objects and you're overlaying them onto the real world. So like in the picture here, you can see the robot and the robot is overlaid in the living room. Looking towards MR is mixed reality. So mixed reality is where you're taking digital objects and they're interacting with the real world. So unlike augmented reality or AR, where they're overlaid on top, mixed reality is where they start to be able to understand the real world space. So you can see, for example, the robot is hiding behind the sofa. If you need me to go into any more detail here, just pop it into the chat and I'll answer questions as we go for those kind of things, or you can just wait until the end. The other thing we need to talk about is 360 video. So 360 video is where you have a panoramic view all the way around you, and it can either be a photo or a recording. This is different to virtual reality because you're fixed in one space. 360 video is more used as like a perspective creator. So if you want to give someone a different perspective on the world, if you want to see from inside of a protest, for example, using 360 video is a great way to do that. Virtual reality, though, you're able to walk around, manipulate things, pick stuff up. It's like the next level. So looking at the hardware involved, for augmented reality, we're looking at devices like the Magic Leap 1 and the Microsoft HoloLens. So the Magic Leap 1 is the device at the top, the one which is £1,860. This is created by a company called Magic Leap, and they designed this to try and be an alternative to eyewear. it's still quite early stage in terms of the design of it, the actual functionality of it. It's quite a chunky thing you put on your head, and then there's a little unit that has to sit on your waistband to go with it, or sit on your jeans, for example. And that's where all the computing power happens. This is made by Magic Leap. The idea behind this is they wanted to create a device which is able to scan the room around you, understand the room around you, and then project holograms into the space that can be interactive. So it's capable of augmented reality, but also mixed reality. The reason all of these prices have a plus next to them is because these are the prices for the consumer models. It's worth remembering that if we're working in a big business, we need to be buying enterprise hardware. And that comes with things like extra security, extended warranties, extra accessories, everything you're going to need if you're deploying this within a business. I think the extra security is probably the biggest one. Being able to integrate this into your business level or your enterprise level security systems is going to be essential, because you don't want someone hacking their way in via your VR headset, for example. The other augmented reality device we're looking at is the Microsoft HoloLens. So this is the one on the left-hand side of your screen at £2,832. Microsoft are obviously a huge player in the software and hardware industry, and the HoloLens is their attempt at creating an augmented reality device. Just like the Magic Leap, this is also capable of mixed reality. It has cameras in the headband, and it's able to understand the space around you. My personal opinion, what I personally think is better about the HoloLens compared to the Magic Leap is that all the computer hardware is inside of the headband. It's inside of the headset itself. So there's no extra cables or anything that you need to attach to your waist or to your belt buckle or anything like that. It's all just built into the unit. It does cost a lot more though. But that's kind of the cost of miniaturization of the hardware, and plus it's Microsoft. Microsoft are actually bringing out the HoloLens 2 headset fairly soon. I'm going to be showing you an example of that later on. It's in one of the videos which we show. In terms of virtual reality hardware, we have the HTC Vive, which is the £800 headset. This is your high level, really, really good visual quality, being able to use your hands with controllers and stuff, and being able to have a really interactive experience. Your middle tier is the Oculus Quest, the one that's at £300. The Oculus Quest, I think, is the most dominant headset on the market right now. There's no cables involved, doesn't need to be connected to a computer. It all just runs straight from the headset, and it's capable of really good experiences. It's being deployed inside of businesses a lot as well. The £300 price point, or I think it's around 500, 600 if it's for enterprise. It's a fairly achievable price point for a lot of businesses. And the fact that there's no cables or anything means that you can just send this out to staff across the world, or you can deploy it where required. You don't have to spend thousands on buying powerful computers capable of virtual reality and then making that all work together, dealing with firewalls, all that kind of stuff. Finally, we have the Oculus Go, which is the one at £139. This is your lowest tier, like your entry-level VR headset. It's also created by Oculus, who create the Oculus Quest I just mentioned. These are actually quite hard to get hold of now, as Facebook, who own Oculus, just for clarity there. They're phasing these headsets out. They've been discontinued. They don't make them in the factories anymore, but there's still an existing stock of about 500,000 of them out there that are waiting to be sold. These are your entry-level headsets. They're a nice, easy price point for people to kind of buy into the technology and try it out. And it's very much like dipping your toe in the water. It's not going to be capable of really fully immersive experiences, but it's enough to kind of give you a taster for the technology and what it's capable of. Looking at software, the main ones used for augmented reality are Spark AR Studio. That's for creating augmented reality filters. So for Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, TikTok, where information is overlaid on top of your face and you can play games. It might change the background behind you. It might put some glasses on you. Those are normally made with Spark AR Studio, or they're made with Snapchat's Lens Studio, which is Snapchat's version. You also have larger games engines like Unreal and Unity. These are your more advanced systems. So if you're a developer, these are what you'll be using for creating experiences, and they're capable of creating VR, AR, and mixed reality experiences. And finally, Microsoft has a whole suite of products like the Visual Studio, which can be used for their HoloLens. Alternatively, you can also develop things on Unreal Engine or Unity, and then you can port them into the HoloLens too. So just because you're using a Microsoft product doesn't mean you need to use Microsoft's development tools. You can still use Unreal Engine or Unity from there. Okay, so who is the audience for immersive technology or for XR? So when we're thinking about the audience for immersive technology, it's essential that we remember the youth of this industry as a whole. Immersive tech and virtual reality has been around since the 70s or the 80s, but we've only really been having this revival of the technology since about 2015. So there's a company called Perkins Coie. They're a big legal firm out in Silicon Valley, in the the San Francisco Bay area. They do a lot of the deal work and a lot of the legal paperwork behind big investments that happen out in Silicon Valley. And they've got a real interest in virtual reality and immersive technologies. So each year they do a survey, they do an AR and VR survey. And this is where they reach out to people who work in the industry globally. They ask them what their biggest concerns are, what their thoughts are, and they use this to try and get a snapshot of what's going on every year. So in the report they released this year, in April, they found that 46% of VR and AR industry workers have found that a lack of an established market is a real barrier for this technology. So we're still seeing very low levels of adoption. Businesses are getting involved, and they're getting involved faster than they ever have before, but it's still fairly small scale, and it's still ramping up. Outside of gaming and entertainment, so things like the PlayStation VR or video games, we're seeing the most disruption coming in healthcare, medical, manufacturing, and also education. So these are the areas where over the next 12 months, I expect to see a lot of adoption of immersive technologies, VR and AR and mixed reality. So you can see here, 38% of respondents pointed to healthcare and medical devices as ripe sectors for disruption. A nice example from within the report, especially for manufacturing and for industrial uses, is from Lockheed Martin. So their emerging technologies lead, Shelley Peterson, said that they saw a 90% reduction in labor costs when they were using VR and AR on the new Orion spacecraft. I have a little visualization later on that I'll show you, which kind of shows the dramatic decrease in cost and the dramatic increase in efficiencies from using this technology as well. Another report we like to reference is PwC's Seeing is Believing report. This came out in November time in 2019, so it's still fairly new. It's still, the statistics are still fairly accurate. However, this was pre-COVID-19, so we've got to take all the answers with a little bit of a pinch of salt in terms of their forecasts for the future, because who knows how a global pandemic is really going to affect us. We can't predict that. So the Seeing is Believing report was a forward-facing report looking at 10 years in the future and how immersive technologies will be impacting the world by 2030. So according to PwC's projections, VR and AR will have a $1.5 trillion boost to global GDP. And you can see that by 2025, they're expecting to have almost a 10 times increase on 2019, and then exponential growth up until 2030 from there. Looking at comparative economic contributions, we can see that AR is going to have a much bigger contribution than VR is. However, as I mentioned earlier at the start, this technology might not be the right thing for you. So it's important that we don't compare this. It's not like VR versus AR, the same way you had like VHS versus Betamax or HD DVD versus Blu-ray. It's not a competition like that. They're both important technologies and they're used for different things. We can see that, AR is going to be over twice as impactful or twice as popular as VR in terms of business use. And looking at the global impact of VR and AR, we can see some expected big players are going to be really seeing the benefits of this technology. Places like the USA, UK, Germany, China and Japan. We've also got some unexpected players like Finland, France, and the United Arab Emirates, which I personally didn't expect to be seeing as like key players in the immersive technology sector, but apparently they are. Okay, another report we like to reference is the Immersive Economy in the UK report. This was created by Immerse UK, which is funded by the Knowledge Transfer Network, or Innovate UK. I think it's funded by Innovate UK, who fund the Knowledge Transfer Network, who fund Immerse UK. And Immerse UK is a membership organisation for immersive companies or people who work in the immersive sector. And they're a UK membership company. The whole purpose of their business or of their membership organisation is to promote the use of immersive technologies and to encourage people to adopt this for the future. So their report, which came out in 2019, showed that 47% of respondents who are using immersive technology saw that it's widened their current client base, and that 65% of them said that it opened up new markets and sectors. So we can really see that people who are adopting VR and AR are seeing the benefits of it. So it's not just something where it's a technology which won't have any bonuses. We're really seeing that there are positives to adopting this technology. So this is a short video which just shows some of the efficiencies from using immersive technologies as part of a manufacturing process. Let me know if this video doesn't play for you or if it's choppy. I'm hoping it should be okay, but we'll have to find out together. So you can see here, using smart glasses, they had a 41% faster completion time. And then here, by timing it using skylight technology, which is an augmented reality technology, I'll just play it one more time. You can see just how much faster this technology is and how beneficial it is to people out there, especially manufacturing and industrial uses. There we go, we'll just let us play one more time. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to move on to opportunities within immersive technology. So here I'm going to give a couple of examples of the sectors that have already adopted the technology and what they're using it for. And then after this, I will start to go into a little bit more depth about some specific case studies that are out there. So first example I want to give is learning and development. This short GIF is from the Personal Vitality and Resilience program created by Lloyd's Banking Group. It's a rolling GIF of about a second, so I'm going to move back to this screen so we don't all just get irritated watching this loop happening again and again and again while I talk. Excuse me. So the Personal Vitality and Resilience program was about helping people at Lloyd's Bank better manage their teams and be aware of the mental health of their teams. So within the program, you're able to identify your teams in 4 key areas. Are they burning out? Are they thriving? Are they surviving? Or are they barely getting by? And as you go through, you meet different co-workers and you see their visual cues and the way they talk, and it helps you to identify exactly what they're going through. And the goal of this is that it means that when you go into the real workplace, you can help your teams, you can make sure they're getting the help they need if they need it, or that you're giving them more work if they're thriving. And the idea is that you can drive efficiencies and you can drive employee well-being by ensuring that everyone's looking out for each other. Okay, the next example I'm going to give is around regulation and health and safety. So this is, while the last one was around soft skills, this is practical skills. So it's just another short GIF. So here you can see you're out on a wind farm and you're climbing a ladder. And this is about training people and making people aware of some practical skills, but in a safe environment. So if you're going out to inspect turbines and you go out on the boat to the turbine, when you climb the ladder, you have to wait until the wave is at the swell, so the wave is at the highest point, and that's when you have to grab onto the ladder and start climbing. Because if you're low down and then the boat comes up, the boat might hit you and it might hurt you, you might even die. So things like this, things that are sort of unforeseen risks, by doing this and teaching it in a safe environment, it almost gives people that compulsory basic training without having to A, shut down a wind turbine for the day, B, hire out a boat, and C, put your staff at risk. So it manages to complete that real basic training and ensure that everyone has a basic level of safety or safety awareness before they go out into the field. Our next example is collaboration. So considering the remote workforce that everyone currently has, this is probably quite an important one and very useful to know about. This is the PwC's VR and AR team using a collaboration tool called Spatial. So using this, some of them are on their smartphones, some of them are on their laptops, some of them are using VR or AR headsets. So it's cross-compatible with all different types of hardware and software. And it takes a photo of your face, and then you can put yourself into someone else's living room, for example. So I think this is taken from Jeremy Dalton, who's the head of VR and AR at PwC UK. This is inside of his living room, and you can see the team walking around, collaborating, adding things in, talking to each other. So it's a nice way of being able to interact with your team and potentially find more efficient ways of working. On the other hand, it does feel like your living room might be haunted by augmented reality ghosts. So these are the pros and the cons of using this software. For marketing and PR uses, we have the example I'm going to give is from Audible. So this is created by a company called VR Craftworks, who are based down in Brighton. So from the video, you open up the Shazam app on your phone. And then within this, this magazine, which comes inside of a newspaper, Shazam is able to scan the advert, and then it's able to create choices for you or give you linkable choices to audiobooks. So these all come up in the app, and then you can click on them and they can take you through, and they can try and sell you a free trial for Audible. So the idea behind this is about conversions and yeah, getting people signing up. So you can see there, that's how the pipeline works for this. It's quite a nice technology. It's about, you know, using augmented reality as a way to interact with people in a new way and maybe make them think of listening to books when they might not have in the past. The next example I'm going to give is around retail and consumer. So this is a short video by IKEA. So in 2016, Apple released their depth sensing software, or they unlocked their depth sensing software inside of their phones, and they created an augmented reality toolkit called ARKit for augmented reality. And you're able to use this to create augmented reality applications which just run on an Apple device. So if you've got an iPad or a fairly new iPhone, then this will just work natively. So we're going to have to tab through to YouTube for this. The video should be loaded up and this should work. If you can't see the YouTube video for any reason, just hammer it away in that chat box and let me know. So you can see using the augmented reality app, you can place chairs, you can place tables. And the idea here is that it senses your room and then it gives you a scale model of that piece of furniture. So this allows people to test the stuff, to see how it's going to look alongside their other furniture. And it stops this. It stops people from, you know, having to get out the tape measure or potentially mismeasuring something and realizing that their new sofa doesn't exactly fit where they hoped it would. Just check the chat box to see if anyone said anything good. I'm hoping you could all see that fine. The next example I'm going to give for retail and consumer is from 19 Crimes. So this is a wine company, and the marketing and the whole concept of the brand is around having real characters. So it's not just the wine having character in terms of taste, but they have a different character on the front of each bottle. And these characters tell their story and the crimes that they committed. And they use an augmented reality filter to do this. So here, we'll skip past him introducing it. It's the 19 Crimes bottle. And the way that it works is using the app, it identifies the label and it recognizes the label. And then the label comes to life and he tells you his story of crime and what he did and how he ended up here. So it's a nice talking point for the table, or if you wanted something different, a new way to interact with your audience or with your customers, this is quite a nice way to do that. Okay, looking at entertainment. So this is from Niantic, who are the creators of Pokemon Go, and I'm sure all of you know about Pokemon Go. The next game they've created is Harry Potter's Wizards Unite. So this is using augmented reality to overlay things from Harry Potter's Wizarding World into your real world, and then you're able to interact with them and play games through it. So that's just a short version of the trailer, but you can see there where the phone almost comes to life, and it shows you the real world behind you, and then the virtual characters on top of it. So at this point, I just want to show you some new stuff which Niantic are working on. So the company who made the Harry Potter Wizards Unite game and Pokemon Go, they're currently working on technology called reality blending. So we'll let this video load. Hello, let's skip past you talking. Okay, so with standard augmented reality, Pikachu's there. They've been placed inside of the real world, but as they run around objects, they don't interact with them, or they don't recognize the objects. So you can see there, they're floating on top of the plant pot, or they float on top of the plant pot as they run around it. There's no sort of depth sensing or understanding of the context of the real world. Whereas with the occlusion technology, you'll see here, as Pikachu runs behind the plant pots, they disappear, or as they run behind people, they disappear. So it's still fairly rudimentary new technology, but the idea here is that from within your smartphone, it will be able to understand the environment you're in, and it will be able to make the digital characters interact within that space. So here you can see it with two of them. You see the Pikachu and the Eevee playing and running between the people's feet. So that's just an example of what the future is going to be like, and what we're going to see in terms of augmented reality innovations for smartphone-based apps. So I'm going to move on to healthcare. Here's an example from Philips. So Philips have a large program of innovation called Project Azurian. And this is about using innovation and technology to improve healthcare inside of hospitals across the world. So they've got a whole suite of products from CAT scans to MRI machines, all the way to holographic surgery, which is what we're going to look at today. So let's skip to the right part in the video. So using augmented reality technology and using the HoloLens 2, they're able to do image-guided surgery. So you see here the display comes out of the computer, it comes into the virtual or the augmented world, and it means that the surgeon is able to see the information they need right in front of them at all times, and they're able to interact with this information and change it as and when they need it. So the idea behind this is that it improves the efficiencies inside of working. It makes things easier. It means the surgeon can get the technology and get the information they actually need, but also you can't spread viruses, or you can't spread bacteria on a holographic screen because it's not really there. So it also increases the hygienic rating and how sterile the operating theatre is. So back in the before times, back when we could go to different places and we didn't have COVID-19, we would do this as a physical workshop. It'd be like a couple of hours of workshopping, talking to people, and then we'd talk about the opportunities, and then we'd get them to try the technology. Obviously, we can't do that anymore. So instead, I'm going to be showing you some more use cases, a little bit more in depth, trying to talk about what the challenge was, how they solved it, and then the return on investment. So the first use case here is DHL. Here we go. I want to go to about this point here in the video. So we'll let the nice man do his talking, and we see these smart glasses that they're using. So they're working with a company called UBMax to create this. And the idea behind this is that they wanted to drive efficiencies inside of their warehouse with their warehouse pickers. So rather than having the mental load of trying to figure out exactly where you're going, what you need to pick, and where it is in the warehouse, and having to navigate the warehouse, instead they're given their pick lists virtually or through a holographic and augmented reality display. And then the technology and the smart glasses also guide them through the warehouse to exactly where they need to go. So rather than having to figure out which aisle they need to be in, the smart glasses direct them right there. And then finally, the smart glasses also scan the barcodes on every item that the warehouse picker is picking up, which means it reduces human error. So the challenge here was around creating a more efficient way for warehouse staff to operate in a way that reduces their mental load and their stress, whilst also increasing the success rates of the pick. So by having a scan, it means they can ensure that the right object is being picked up. By navigating staff through the warehouse, it means that they don't have to worry about where they're going or finding the right things, which means it decreases their mental load and their stress, and it also increases how fast they can pick stuff. The next use case I'm going to give an example of here is Multiverse by Curioscope. So Curioscope is a Brighton-based technology startup, and they're looking at using augmented reality to change the way that we educate our kids. So you might have seen, if you use Facebook, maybe last year, you might have seen a viral video of a t-shirt with a skeleton imprint on it. And when you held an iPad in front of the skeleton, you could see inside the human body, and you could interact with the heart and the lungs and the intestines. And that was created by this company too. And their latest product is Multiverse. So we've just got a short video for this one. So here you can buy these posters. You can buy them in the Science Museum or online. And then using the application on your smartphone, the posters come to life and they teach you about the universe. So there's one poster for Earth, one poster for the solar system, and one poster for the moon currently. And you can see here, it explodes out, it shows the Earth, it shows the core, it shows the mantle, and it also teaches you about it with a voiceover going over the top. So unlike the other examples that I've given, the return on investment for Curioscope isn't about monetary gain or about driving efficiencies. The return on investment here was measured through reviews and through experiences. So they spoke to teachers and they spoke to parents, and they said, is this engaging your kids? Are they enjoying this? Are they learning in a new way? Are they talking about it? And overall, the reaction there was positive. And that's how Curioscope gauged this project as a success rather than a financial gain. Another use case comes from Ørsted. So Ørsted are a green energy company. They're actually the ones that commissioned the wind turbine example I showed you earlier on. They're a Danish energy company, and they're the greenest company in the world currently. They created a product or a 360 video called Space Safari. And in this video, here's just a little short snippet of it. You basically, you're on Earth. You have the voiceover of an astronaut saying, look at this beautiful place. Isn't this this is your home. Look how wonderful it is. And it says, oh, you might not recognize this place, but I assure you, this is your home. And then you go out into space and you get the overview effect, which is where a thing that astronauts get, where they realize just how small and fragile this tiny blue dot in space is. And this is our home. We need to protect it. And the idea was around raising awareness of the impact of climate change. And whilst you may not see these impacts on a day-to-day basis, they are happening, and it's your job to be aware of this and try to fight it and to try and help reduce climate change where you can. So the challenge here was, how do they communicate climate change in a new way that's also going to leave a lasting impact on the viewer? So they did this by creating the overview effect and getting people to feel that sense of emotion. And then the return on investment here was around raising awareness of Ørsted's mission and how they fight climate change every single day. They also had a secondary return on investment, where the first time they showed this was at the climate summit in New York last September. And so by using a novel way of communicating their message, they were able to get heads of state, journalists, key scientists, key CEOs to come in, put on a VR headset, and then watch this 360 video. So they managed to get like a really, really powerful return on investment, that they had all these key people around the world suddenly become aware of Ørsted, aware of their mission, and start to look at ways they can commit funding and help Ørsted to create even more green energy. So if you're looking at getting started with immersive technology, where do you begin? So the first step is to get educated. Yes, you can listen to me, but you need to do more than this. You need to be reading articles, research paper, following immersive people on social media and getting their thoughts and understanding their perspectives too. By getting educated, it broadens your kind of perspective about what is possible with this technology. I've kind of given you some use cases, but the more people you follow, the more things you see, the more ideas you get of what is actually possible and what you could be creating. Once you've kind of got this understanding, the next step is to identify a use case. So this is finding somewhere where immersive technology might benefit you or your company. Because if we don't do it, if we don't find a place where we can benefit first, we end up creating tech for tech's sake, which is where it's created without a return investment in mind, and it ends up being money that is just put towards something and we never actually know if it was worth it. So by identifying your use case, you're being able to figure out exactly what problem you're trying to solve, and then you can set about the measurements for how do we solve it and how do we gauge return investment, how do we gauge that this project has been a success. So once you've got that as your starting ground, you're going to create a test experience. So you don't create the whole thing. You don't, if you want to do a training course in virtual reality, you don't start by just going straight in and creating the whole training course. The first thing you want to do is create a test experience. Test that your hypothesis and that your presumptions work. Create a small version, maybe just half an hour of learning in virtual reality. Or if it's a multi-module course, maybe you do one module in virtual reality as a trial, and then roll this out, see how people react to it, understand if it's working, get feedback from the people who are actually trying it, because they might enjoy certain parts, they might not enjoy other things, and then use this to iterate and work on it to, when you create your final product, you're creating something that people actually want and people are actually going to use. So finally, measure and iterate and make sure you're tracking effectively. So by measuring what's happening, you're actually ensuring the project or the experience that you're creating comes back to the key reasons why you started making it. What is your return investment? What problem are you trying to solve? And by measuring this and tracking it, it ensures that the project stays on track. You don't end up going off in the wrong direction, creating something which is nothing like the original use case that got signed off by the budget holder. So, some resources to begin with this. The first thing we say is for people who are looking to identify their use case, we recommend they go and they check out MakeReal. So MakeReal is an immersive technology company based down in Brighton. They do a lot of enterprise level solutions for learning and development and for training. So the examples that I showed you earlier from Lloyds Bank and the Ørsted wind turbine were actually created by MakeReal. But what they have on their website is they have a use case identification template. It's on their homepage. You have to scroll about halfway down to find the link. But you go to this and this will it will show you a PDF, which you can then print out. It's got lots of boxes with lots of different questions. And when you go through and you answer all the questions, you'll end up with essentially a worksheet that you could then hand to a developer and say, this is what I want to create. This is what I want to be my test experience. And they'd be able to go ahead and make that for you from there. So this really helps you to identify your use case and understand where you're beginning. Once you've got your use case and you're looking at developing something, the next thing you're going to need to do is find production companies. You may already have some companies in mind, which you may have found during your initial research that I mentioned. But if not, you're welcome to come talk to us at Virtual Umbrella and we can recommend the right production companies for you to talk to. Alternatively, I want to make sure we're objective here. So I also recommend you speak to Immerse UK, who are the membership organization I mentioned earlier, and also AIXR, who are the Academy for International Extended Reality. They're another membership organization. They have a lot of production companies who are registered. So they're also a good place to go if you need signposting towards finding a production company that might be able to help you. Finally, you might have software development expertise, or you might be a software development company. So in that case, you just need to find the right specialists for creating this. So in that case, you might just want to find freelancers rather than working with a production company. For this, I recommend Blend Market. Blend Market is an online marketplace created by a company called Blend Media. And on here, you can upload your briefs, upload your budget, and then creatives and small creative teams can respond to your brief and get in touch and say whether they can do it for that budget, or they can ask extra questions. And it basically gives you a barrier that protects you and also protects the freelancers. It means you've got like a middle ground, which is somewhere where you can communicate, discuss, and it's almost a bit like an escrow service in terms of payment as well, because you don't have to pay them directly. You can pay Blend Market, who then take that risk of paying the freelancers from there. So what's next for the technology? So we've got things like 5G, COVID-19, and the immersive industry of 2020. Or now we're in June. So Q3 and 4 of the immersive industry 2020. So with COVID-19, we're seeing a lot of people are remaining indoors. They're not able to exercise as much as they might want to, and they're also not seeing people, and they might be stressed. So for exercise, there's a lot of virtual reality exercise applications. There's things like Beat Saber, which is where you're moving to a rhythm in order to play a piece of music. There's things like meditation VR, guided meditation VR, where you're able to go to a safe space, relax, chill out, be guided by a voiceover telling you to breathe and to, really get you into that Zen state. And finally, we have social VR applications, things like AltSpace and Engage, where you can meet people and talk to people and go to events. AltSpace, for example, they have a weekly fireside catch-up where lots of people just turn up and hang out around a virtual fire, a virtual campfire, and they can talk, they can find out new things, they can meet new people. So it's a new way for interacting with people in a virtual space. In terms of viewers, we're going to see coming out in the next 6 months or even the next year. We have a whole variety of augmented reality and mixed reality viewers coming out. The real interesting ones that I see are Nreal, Pico, and Panasonic. So the Nreal headset is currently being tested by beta testers in the USA, and it's showing some really promising results. Pico have a good track record of creating virtual reality headsets, which is why I'm really interested to see what they create. And Panasonic are Panasonic. And also it's probably the closest we've got to something that actually looks like sunglasses, except for maybe Nreal. Nreal looks like sunglasses, but then when you wear them, you realize just how big and chunky they are. Whereas Panasonic is actually gone for the right form factor for sunglasses. But you also end up looking a bit like Willy Wonka, or a bit like Crowley from Good Omens. So, there's the pros and cons with the form factors and the designs of these headsets and these viewers that we're seeing. Of course, we're still waiting to see the move from the biggest player in the game, Apple. We know that they're working on Apple glasses. They've been hiring people for the last 3 years working on it. There's lots of rumors coming out from reputable sources. So we know they're working on something, and we know it's going to be augmented reality. It's just a case of seeing how it is, or what it is, and when it comes out. So we're just patiently waiting. And before you get too excited, this is just an artist's impression of what it may look like. Don't go sharing this saying, I've seen what the Google Glass looks like. Or not the Google Glass, sorry, the Apple Glass. Okay, and here's an example of what we might see for a future of mixed reality and augmented reality using something like the Apple glasses. Here, demonstrated with an Apple card from their new credit card range, being able to use augmented reality to view your statements in real time. So rather than having to use a smartphone app or something, you can just do it using augmented reality. There are arguments out there that once we get smart glasses, that might be the end of the smartphone. So if it is the end of the smartphone, perhaps this is the new way which we'll interact. It'll be a mix of augmented reality and physical objects and markers that we'll have with us at all times. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me today. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to either put them in the Q&A function or to put them in the chat. If you just want to drop a message in the chat asking me how I am, how my day has been, I'll appreciate that too. I just like the attention. Thank you very much.
I've got a question for you myself, actually. How, like, I'm speaking with regards to actual Apple, as it were, and their version of the Google Glass, if you will, so the Apple glasses. How many years do you think we are from that? Like, how long, as someone who's obviously in that field? Because as far as use cases for augmented reality go, I think that's where we'll really see like the use spike up. I can see a ton of applications cropping up where perhaps like, you know, there'll be overlays over your vision, whether it will be a to-do list on your like, you know, Apple Glass, whether it will be a labeling application, like an object labeling application or anything else. I can easily see a ton of uses being there and people monetizing that. But how far do you reckon we are from the Apple, I want to call it Google Glass? But yeah.
So in my personal opinion, I think we might see either an announcement or rumors, like more tangible rumors coming out in 2021. Maybe we'll see a release of something like a beta version in 2022 or late 2021. It might be, so Apple's always had a real problem with hardware that isn't a phone or a laptop. So they tried to create a fast charger a couple of years ago, and that ends up being a failed project because they had expectations of what they wanted to create, but then they couldn't meet those expectations. So instead they just bins the project. So whilst I personally think we might see something in either 2021 or 2022, Apple has $1 trillion in the bank. They have more money than any of us can dream of just as cash sat in that bank. If they wanted to, they could hire 400, 500 people to build this and then bin it after 3 years of development, and they wouldn't even notice the change in their bank balance. So there is always a chance that they may be dreaming of the next level of human interaction with technology. And if they can't achieve it, they could just put this project away completely. So still kind of tense, fingers crossed, we'll have to see.
I hope not, because I'd imagine we already are somewhat, the technology I would imagine is almost there, because again, Google Glass was a thing. And as far as I'm concerned, the only reason why it got sort of, you know, shelved away and put behind the scenes was because that resistance by people to be recorded. I believe when the smartphones first came out, and when the camera phones came out, people had that concern that they would be recorded essentially out in public. And if you have glasses that, for example, have a camera, that would be a very similar concern. So I knew that was a pushback for Google whilst they were developing it a few years back. But considering Google were working on it and Apple probably essentially like captured that talent pool, I would imagine they would be able to go forward with it. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I'm hopeful in that scope. I'm very hopeful.
absolutely. And I think that the general public's attitude towards privacy has changed in the last 10 years or so. People are much more willing to give out private information, but also are much more aware of what their information gets used for. So I think that could be less of a hurdle than it was back in the smartphone times.
Okay, cool. I think there are no pressing questions from our audience as such. On that note, I would like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. We'll have a more coming out very shortly on a range of different topics that will include sales, marketing, more on the VR and AR and related topics. We will be sending out a survey shortly after this webinar. Please do give us feedback. We do take that feedback on, and we do strive to provide a better service with each and every single webinar we run. So please do have a look at that. And I think on that note, again, thank you very much. And that is it for today's webinar.
Thank you very much.